Hi, everybody. Welcome back to World History. Again, this lesson will be broken up into three separate segments with the opening activity, Lecture 1, and Activity 1 in this video, Lecture 2, and Activity number 2 in the second video, and then Lecture 3 and the final assessment in the third video. Overall, our goal for today is to study the Nazi invasion of the the Balkans, so primarily Yugoslavia and Greece, and the Soviet invasion as well, so Operation Barbarossa. We'll also examine the Einsatzgruppen and how they carried out violence in Europe. We'll analyze the treatment of Soviet POWs in the camps, as well as analyze the Wannsee Conference and its impact on the Holocaust, along with examining the effects of the Holocaust on North Africa. And we will continue to analyze quotes and primary sources from the period to develop a stronger understanding of the materials being presented. So, please get out your fill in the blank or scaffolded notes, and let's begin with our opening activity. So, for your opening activity, you're going to analyze this poster right here. This was a piece of anti-Soviet propaganda utilized by the Nazis. So, while you analyze this image, consider the following. Who made this propaganda? What is it depicting? What is the message being sent by this piece? And whether or not you believe it to be effective. Take a few minutes, respond on Google Classroom, and be prepared for an in-class discussion. So, lecture number 1 is primarily going to focus on the Nazi invasion of the Balkans and the Soviet Union. So, we'll start by looking at Yugoslavia and Greece, and then we'll wrap up this section by looking at the Soviet Union. So, it's important to understand that this is a war of annihilation. In going into 1942, well, still partially 1941, the invasion will turn south and east, primarily towards Yugoslavia, Greece, and the Soviet Union. It's important to understand that the goals of racial purification that the Nazis were working under made it so that killing was a necessity. In 1941, it transformed into something very different. As they're moving south and east, they're encountering groups of people that were deemed enemies, primarily those that lived in the Balkans and most notably the Soviets. They were very much against the Soviets. We also see new depths of violence towards a variety of groups, including civilians, Soviet POWs, the Roma, and obviously the Jews, who are now openly going to be targeted for annihilation. Victims are going to scramble, and every crisis was amplified because, for the most part, this region we're going to talk about today has been invaded twice in the last 2 years, whether it be from the Soviets in 1939 and then the Nazis in 1941. This also, we have to talk about the phrase Holocaust by bullets. This is the killing of Jews in Eastern Europe. This is not where we talk about like people being sent to gas chambers or death camps. They're simply going to be lined up, marched into graves, and shot. So, starting in 1941, the Wehrmacht are going to strike first. This is linked to an eventual Soviet invasion. So they're starting with Yugoslavia and Greece. Now, they needed to secure the southeastern flank before going into the Soviet Union, as well as providing access to Romanian oil. Because if you remember last week, Romania became an ally of Nazi Germany. So, on April 6, 1941, the Luftwaffe are going to bomb Belgrade, which is their capital in Yugoslavia. And Yugoslavia will surrender 11 days later on April 17th. 17,000 people will be killed during the air raid. As a result of this, the Yugoslavian king, very similar to other governments we've talked about this unit, like Norway and a few other places, flee to Britain. Now, it's important to understand that that idea of divide and conquer is going to come back into play as well. So, part of Yugoslavia is actually going to be broken up into a Croatian state. This includes parts of Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. This is a Croatian state under Ante Pavele and his fascist Utasa movement. Murder is very common in this part. But they're once there, they're going to murder or expel thousands of Serbs and send Jews and Roma to deadly camps like Jasenovac. But they are going to face resistance from a communist-led partisan movement. So another big thing we're going to talk about today is the partisans. They use the region's rugged terrain, to their advantage. The harsh occupation also meant that more people were willing to support the partisans. But in response, there was a lot of reciprocation. For every German killed, German authorities were order a certain number of people to be shot. Sometimes it could be 50 civilians for one Nazi officer, or 100 or 200, depending on who it was. By 1942, one of those Kaiser coffee gas vans that we've talked about will arrive in Belgrade with about 62,000 Jewish women and children being killed using that. So the total cost in Yugoslavia has about 67,000 Jews and 27,000 Roma being killed on Yugoslavian soil once they were essentially conquered by the Nazis. So let's talk about Greece real quick, because Greece is a little weird. It was originally invaded in 1940 by Italy and would be overrun in April and May by the Germans. Just like Yugoslavia, the Nazis are going to attack civilians and members of the military. However, unlike places like Poland and Yugoslavia, which their major cities will be bombed, Greece is not, because Hitler gives a specific order to preserve art. Things like the Parthenon and a variety of other major ancient Greek sites. Because, well, first of all, being a flunked out art student, he was fascinated by Greek and Roman art. He also believed that those that lived in ancient Greece and Rome eventually moved north and became German. So that idea of an Aryan fits within that mindset. Hold on just a second. Excuse me. So he would further then adjust his reality of the world adjust reality to fit his view of the world and justify the protection of Greek historical sites. Once that is done, he's going to turn on the Soviet Union, starting on June 22nd, 1941, giving the order to kill all Communist Party officers taken prisoner. This is known as the Commissar Order. Now, Soviet commissars were viewed to be the originators of barbaric Asiatic methods of warfare. So, with this, we have to consider our first myth of the day. Hitler would have won if he didn't invade the Soviet Union. Well, in reality, Hitler wanted land and resources for the Aryan race. The Soviet Union had both, and he'd already planned on invading. But you're probably wondering, Mr. Christensen, what about that Nazi-Soviet pact, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that they signed just a few years earlier? Well, it was made to be broken, and it gave Hitler 2 years to prepare to invade. Once the invasion starts, the Soviet government is going to organize mass evacuations of people and resources. It's clear to understand, though, this is not designed to save Jews. It was meant to save high-ranking communists and their families and their friends. But Jews found ways to join the mass movement east. More than 1 million Jews will actually follow this mass evacuation to the Soviet interior, where actually Jewish life in the Soviet interior is actually pretty good. They're able to maintain a level of public communal life, and the Jews living in the interior also included those sent there by force by the Soviets a few years prior. So, on average, there was about 3 million Jewish people living in the Soviet interior, far enough away that they will be not touched by the Nazis. But it kind of put people in a weird spot. They're caught either between Stalin and Hitler. They didn't only invade Russia, the Nazis. They invaded the Soviet Union, which contained a number of countries like Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, a very wide variety. Now, that also meant all of these places experienced 2 major invasions in a 2-year period. This region of dual occupation is also going to prove extremely deadly for Jews. So, now let's talk about the Einsatzgruppen, or the Special Action Groups. These are SS murder squads accompanying the military, typically with 500 to 1,000 men in each unit. This included many lawyers and other professionals. They were specifically ordered by Heydrich to order all units to kill Jews, prominent communists, and anyone suspected of anti-German activity. This is very similar to that AB action policy in Poland that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. It often involved local people in the mobile killing units. Usually they were threatened, bribed, or given privileges in exchange for joining and helping. One of the major places we have to talk about this happening is the Pripyat marshes, which you may be familiar if you're more familiar with nuclear history, because, that's where Chernobyl will be eventually. This is the site of horrendous slaughters. It's a major swamp area. So Himmler urged German forces to shoot all Jewish men and then drive women and children into the swamp where they would then die of exposure. More often than not, they would attempt to start pogroms wherever they went, for less successful than the German leadership would have wanted, but there were some. And many of the actions taken by the mobile killing squads followed the same pattern. Typically, they would round up Jews through some sort of ruse or trick them into coming to certain places. Then they would order large pits to be dug, typically they in cemeteries or other locations. And in some cases, they forced the people they were going to shoot to dig their own graves. Victims were forced to undress. Then they would be shot directly into the graves. The result of this will be 1.5 million Jews being murdered. It's important to understand it could not be kept a secret. People like Herman Grab, a local engineer, are going to witness this. And here's part of his experience. And let me move my bubble down to the bottom. That way it's not in the way of the quote. So Menekes and I went straight towards the ditches without being stopped. When we neared the mound, I heard a series of rifle shots close by. The people from the trucks, men, women, and children, were forced to undress under the supervision of an SS soldier with a whip in his hand. They were obliged to put their effects in certain areas, shoes, clothing, and underwear separately. I saw a pile of shoes, thousands of pairs, great heaps of underwear and clothing. Without weeping or crying out, these people undressed and stood together in family groups, embracing each other and saying goodbye, while waiting for a sign from the SS soldier, who stood on the edge of the ditch. During the 15 minutes I stayed there, I did not hear a single complaint or plea for mercy. I watched a family of about 8, a man and woman about 50 years old, surrounded by their children aged about 1, 8, and 10, and 2 older girls about 20 and 24. An old lady, her hair completely white, held the baby in her arms, rocking it and singing it a song. The infant was crying aloud with delight. The parents watched the groups with tears in their eyes. The father held the 10-year-old boy by the hand, speaking softly to him. The child struggled to hold back his tears. Then the father pointed a finger to the sky, and stroking the child's head seemed to be explaining something. Take a minute, reflect on that quote, and be prepared to discuss. So, one of the major massacres we have to talk about is the Kamianets-Podilskyi massacre. Now, the Einsatzgruppe doesn't worry about opposition. Some locals even came and helped, while others, for the most part, hungered down in their homes. It also meant that, again, like we've been talking about, that violence would become contagious. In June 1941, Hungary, who had joined the Axis, also declared war on the Soviet Union. And they expelled all foreign Jews from their territory, with a grand number of about 18,000 Jews being brought to the former Polish border, then being handed over to the Germans. Another major massacre we have to talk about is Babyn Yar, which was in September of 1941. This is a massacre in occupied Ukraine, where more than 30,000 Jews outside of Kiev will be shot. It's emblematic of the carnage caused by the Germans. So, as we wrap up section 1, here's a knowledge check. Consider the following. How were people treated in this part of Europe by the Nazis? How is it different from the experiences of those in the West? And how did the Germans view the Soviets? Take a couple minutes to think about that. We'll discuss it as a class. And here is activity number 1. It's a newsreel analysis. The video did not load in. So in a moment, we'll jump from this video to the video. And while you're watching, this is a newsreel of the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. While watching, consider the following. Which perspective does this video show? What tactics do you see being used? As well as how are people reacting in this video? And, there's the video. And here are the sources that were used for section 1. Well, I should say the whole lesson. Feel free to consult any of these resources if you'd like on your own time. Most of these are available either online or at your local library. I'll see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.